Hello everyone, it's good to be with you for this special weekend. I wish I was with you in person because Wildwood brings back so many good memories for me. And in fact, self-supporting work in general is something that I have grown up in and something that I have learned to love and have really enjoyed all of my life. And it's as I look back over my experience in self-supporting work that I am truly thankful for many of the things that I've learned as well as the experiences that I've enjoyed. So I wanted to share with you a few of those today for this special weekend so that you could have a little glimpse into my experience, my life, and as well to give God all the honor and glory for raising an army of lay people to be able to accomplish a work for Him. I'd like to share with you one of the things that I really appreciated about self-supporting work is that it gave me an opportunity to learn to work at a very early age. I remember that I was able to work in what we call the bagging room up in Mountain Missionary Institute in New Hampshire. And my mom was in charge of the bagging room, and so my brother and our job was to take big 50-pound sacks and boxes and to weigh them into smaller bags. And I remember doing that for quite a while, and we learned to work at a very early age. When I was old enough to be able to sit on a riding mower, the person that was in charge of the grounds at Wildwood at that time, his name was Roy Brown, and he said, "Oh, would you like to learn to mow the grass?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." I was probably 10 or 11 years old. And so he gave me that opportunity to learn to mow the grass, and every day he would call me up and say, "Oh, we need you to mow here, or we need you to mow there." Seemed like it wasn't long before I was mowing half of the campus, but I really loved to do things that I felt were worthwhile. I developed an enjoyment to see things well done as well. There's nothing that looks nicer than a nice field freshly mowed, and it's something that has stayed with me to this day, something that I appreciate. I had the opportunity to work at the Lifestyle Center, washing dishes, all kinds of different things that, and in fact, it would take quite a long time if I were to tell you all of the different things that I was able to do, not only as a child, but as I grew up as well. And that's, I believe, one of the benefits of self-supporting work is that we get an opportunity to touch all different areas, not only one specialty that we might have studied and gotten a degree in and only do that all of our lives. And for me, that's something that I really appreciate very much about self-supporting work. I had a few little experiences that I think are probably long gone in self-supporting work, but nonetheless, they're wonderful memories for me. I remember that I was able to drive the car all by myself at 12 years old around campus, and I thought that was really great stuff. Of course, I'm sure that the climate has changed a little bit and those things are probably not allowed, but the good old days were wonderful for kids, and I really enjoyed that. I remember also having an opportunity to develop my gifts in different areas. Music was one of them. At a very young age, I was able to lead out choir and bell choir. And in fact, it brings me a lot of joy to know that those handbells are still being used at Wildwood. So those were things that are memories that I really treasure a lot. One thing that I really appreciate about self-supporting work is the fact that both the Bible and the spirit of prophecy are really taken seriously and taken at face value. I really am so blessed to have had a heritage where people really practiced what they preached. And I know that there's no place that's perfect, but when you really grow up in a place where people are sincere in their Christian experience, it makes a huge impact on young people or people of any age for that matter. I think that it's also very beautiful to see the way that lay ministries are active in carrying out the gospel commission, in using the right arm of the message of the gospel, the health message. Those are all things that have really made a big impact on me. I think the importance of embracing church doctrine is something that has been very present in self-supporting work. We are definitely there to support the church in every single way we can. And one of those ways is most definitely church doctrine, because we stand by it with all of our hearts, and we believe in who we are as a church. Another thing that I think is a huge benefit of supporting ministries is learning to live on sacrificial income. Sometimes we might see that as a trial, but I would say that it's definitely a huge blessing, because I see so many problems that people have in our world today where they can't live in their means. And this recurring problem is something that creates so much trouble in our world today, causing people to go into debt and to have all kinds of issues. And I think really the solution to that problem is simply learning to live on what you receive. And I think that self-supporting work has actually taught me that even beyond living within your means, it's also the importance of being able to save money. And I think my parents had a big role in that as well. They always really encouraged me from a very young age to save my money, even though it may be very small. And I'm thankful for that example. It's one that they practiced and one that they encouraged me to do. And I realized the other day when I went to shop for a new used car, I went to a few dealers, and the dealer was like saying, "Oh, what's your budget?" And then he was like, "Oh, if you increase your budget a little bit, you can have this much more." And I said, "Well, my budget's pretty much what it is." And he said, "Well, you can always push it a little bit and easily get a loan for that." And I kind of looked at him and said, "Well, at 45 years old, I don't think I'm going to take out my first loan for a car, because I've never taken out a loan so far." And I don't say that to, try to impress anybody. I just say that because that came directly from what I learned as a way of life in self-supporting work. And I think that it's a message that the world needs to hear, and we would have a lot less trouble if we lived in that way. I think that we also can see that there's all kinds of other things that are really experienced in self-supporting work, like, for example, the realization that we're living in the end times. This is something that's been very real to me my whole life. And obviously we're closer to the end of time today than we were when I was a child. But nonetheless, that understanding that we are living in the last days was something that was very present and still is very present in our supporting ministries and in self-supporting work. I think that another thing that really stood out to me is the importance of living by faith and daring to do things for God. As parents that have not only been very involved in self-supporting work, but have also pioneered some self-supporting work, I think that is something that really was ingrained in me very young. In fact, maybe I kind of got it through osmosis, because back in those early days, and this is probably a story that shouldn't be told too far and wide, but in any case, it's rather amusing. My parents were traveling around, and I was small enough to be able to fit in a banana box. So my parents decided that that was a good place for me to travel in, so they put me comfortably in that, and wow, it was so great to travel there. We didn't have to worry about the car seats that we worry about today. Well, I'm definitely not encouraging you not to put your baby or your child in a car seat. Car seats are much safer, but somehow it was just a glimpse into the good old days and the way things were back when you just did whatever you needed to do in order to accomplish the job. Well, we have a lot more constraint these days, and that's fine too. God is not limited to the constraints that we might have in the world that we live in today. But to me, this desire of moving out in faith and to be able to really incorporate principles of pioneering, they were things that touched me so deeply that I actually kind of followed in those same footsteps in wanting to start a ministry here in Quebec. I saw that the needs were great. I saw that there weren't many lay ministries, in fact, not really any that were functioning in the way that we see in self-supporting work in the United States and other countries. And so I really had a burden to branch out into that and to continue along the lines of doing supporting ministries. God has blessed us tremendously in being able to open doors for us. He's also allowed some very difficult trials to come our way, but the heritage that I was able to experience in the richness that both my wife and I received in self-supporting work has helped us to be able to go forward and to keep and to stay faithful. And God, yes, He provides one day at a time, and it's been a huge blessing. I think the last thing that I'd like to share that I just appreciate so much about self-supporting work is that really it's all one big family. And this family is just such a blessing to be part of it. And you really do feel like the people around you are brothers and sisters. You feel the love and the care. And that's something that I really bring with me from self-supporting work, and honestly something that I experience every day in the ministry that God has blessed us with is that family, that love, that care, and the fact that we're all in it together. God may use unusual means in order to finish His work. He may use humble servants, as we see so often in supporting ministries. And I believe that as we join together as a family, that God allows us to do it in a much more powerful way. The realization that we need each other, but most of all that we need God, and that humble dependence upon God is something that I treasure to this day. I appreciate the example that my parents have given me, both my mom and my dad, in the way that they have really exemplified that humility, that stability, that conviction, and to really, behind closed doors, I was able to see who they really are. And I can say that my parents are who they say they are, people that believe, people that live by conviction, and people that are practicing God's principles in their own private lives. And to me, if that wasn't true, I wouldn't be there today, because children see hypocrites very quickly, and they are turned off by people that don't practice what they preach. And so I think, bottom line, seeing the consistency and the transparency and the truth in what my parents have lived and the models that they have set have really just encouraged me to, by God's grace, try to give the same legacy to the next generation. And it's not easy raising kids in the world today, but I'm thankful for the example that I have in my parents, and I'm thankful for the blessing of self-supporting work.